Welcome to the Dr. Leadership Podcast, where the DR stands for Driving Results. Our focus is weekly conversations around life and business relationships and the important leadership qualities for both. These concepts and qualities will help you drive positive results in both your business and personal lives. A weekly connection point to help business leaders develop individual contributors, managers, and executives on your teams. We also will tie in concepts around family focus and life lessons to help you drive success in your personal life. Welcome to the Dr. Leadership Show. Let's get after it. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Dr. Leadership Show. The doctor is in. Hope you're having a great day. I am. Carry your own sunshine, everybody. It's important to make sure that you're in charge of your attitude. Hey, a couple weeks into the new year here, and the last couple episodes have been about some financial leadership in your personal lives, and I am going to swing back into kind of some business stuff here to get back on track on being a leader inside of your business life. Also, this episode's going to touch on some personal things too, because they kind of go hand in hand. But want to talk about today, being a leader in personal life or business life. We can say both here. In a ticked off world. I mean, there is just anger everywhere, and I don't get it. People really, really struggle with their emotions these days, and there's lots of reasons for it. I mean, this pandemic, the last 3 years, almost coming up here, March 13th, I think is when 2020 is when we shut down incoming airlines and really started locking everything down. But the pandemic has caused some near irreversible anxieties. And a lot of people don't do good with anxiety. I mean, there's tens of millions of people on medication for it before the pandemic started. And then there's a whole lot of people that are at home self-medicating, doing the wrong things to try to handle some of these anxieties too. But what has happened is our environment is beginning to be led by fear instead of optimism. What has made America great and our lifestyle's great in the past is our ability to be optimistic. The glass half full versus the glass half empty. The glass is refillable. I've said before, you get out of life what you put in it. And if you mope around and sit and cry baby tears all day long as a grown-up, you are going to feel nothing but depression. And that isn't healthy either. The government has overstepped. This isn't a claim on any specific administration. This is the last administration and this administration both. Other administrations around the world have overstepped their responsibilities. And it's all about power grab, right? I mean, look what happened in Ottawa, up in Canada a couple years ago, or now a year ago, I guess, the trucker strike. I mean, they literally were pulling people out of trucks. They were sitting downtown, fighting against the mandate on the vaccines. And the time at which they were fighting, it was that lots of data had come out, professional doctors, virologists, all sorts of medical professionals for and against. You can decide that yourself. And even now the CDC has stepped back and said, if you're over 65, you ought to get the booster, everybody else, personal choice. But Ottawa went so heavy-handed. I mean, it was right out of the brown shirts of Nazi Germany, hauling people off to jail. If you serve them food and help their cause, you will be arrested. It was insane. And, look at the Twitter news just the last few days. They were manipulating what could be on the public square and not governments all over. This is right out of Joseph Goebbels' 1936 propaganda. The Nazis are awesome, everyone else sucks. It's the same thing. Those that don't understand history, go look at it. People yell fascist the wrong direction every single day. When you're trying to shut down speech and things, it's very, very tough. This isn't a political podcast, but I'm just kind of going through some of the steps that have led to this unbelievable level of pessimism and how the whole world is up against us. Governments typically are not the answer. I want government as minimally involved in my life as possible. The reason is I trust in my own good doings. I trust in myself to be hardworking and conservative in approaches on spending and to position my family with good values. We're not perfect. I'm not virtue signaling here. I'm just saying I don't need Uncle Sam or Uncle Joe telling me what to do. I mean, if you think the government's going to come with the right answers, talk to any of your local Native Americans. See what they think about the governmental promises. Didn't work out for them, did it? So we have to be cautious here on who we are trusting to fix these things. You know, how do you lead your own life and your teams through this new angry world? Everybody's pissed off about something. And that's what I want to kind of dive in here. What I'm setting up with this first, entree conversation is, how have we kind of gotten here? It has been nothing but narrative control, down in the dumps, death, death, death. I mean, look at what's going on with the conversation around global warming and climate change. You can't have a differing opinion there either. We definitely have an impact, and climate has always changed. Is it the Earth's wobble, the angle to the sun? Are we on a time scale that continues to repeat itself? There's a lot of valid data around that. But all we do is infuse our kids, our news, our families with negative. The world's going to end because of the pandemic. The world's going to end because of storms. The world's going to end because of global warming. The world's going to end because of Russia's war on Ukraine. Third World War is going to happen. Nuclear disasters coming. All we do is just continue to push anxiety onto people. And we as leaders in our community, our homes, and our businesses need to step in. And I was reading one of the periodicals I get that I think is very, very good for insight and to allow me to think about things and come up with my own opinions, of course. I don't take their input as golden. I take their input as pause for thought. Discourse is important, to hear the other side, to hear your side, to figure out your own truth here. And Harvard Business Review has a great article out, and it's about basically dealing with this angry world we're living in. And they call it the world of outrage, I think is what the article was called. But they talk about how there's 3 things that are leading this anger. The first we kind of just touched on. Despair about the future. Everything we have heard, everything we're being fed is despair, despair, despair. Murder, death, gosh almighty, it's just child trafficking. The list goes on and on and on of the bad things in this world. These bad things have been there forever. The challenge we face now, controlling our attitudes about it and the ability to deal with it, is that it's in your face every single day. Set the phone down. Set the Twitter feed down. Set the Instagram account down. Set Facebook down. It's just people yelling in the town square through all of this passive-aggressive behavior that is absolutely destroying our inner capabilities to deal with a challenging life. Life is not easy, but don't let these people just bring you down. So they say despair about the future is one. The other one, thinking the game is rigged. There is a whole lot of truth to that. The game is rigged. Look at what happens in the U.S. government. You go in as a pauper, you come out as a prince after 40 years in the Senate. Somehow, we don't hold our congressional leaders to the same accountability on buying stocks as the owners of companies or the CEOs of companies or the C-suite of companies. They get to make the laws that impact stock prices. We don't hold them accountable. They can't buy and sell stocks. How do you go in as making $168,000 a year for for 20 years and come out worth $25 million? That only happens one way. Someone's greasing your palm. You're getting paid to play. Be that as it may, that too has always been there. So how do we handle that? How do we manage through the thought that the game is rigged? And that can be at your company's level too, and I'll touch on that. And the last thing they say that really comes in is ideology of othering. And this is the one where by trying to control the narrative and only believing in one truth, people get pissed off and say, I'm going to believe in the opposite. I'm going to create my own team over here and go against anything you ever say. And now we've got two teams that point each other in this grand world and say, you're wrong and you're evil. One team wants to talk about it. The other team just says, if you don't believe the way I believe, you're evil and you must die. You must go away. We must rid the world of you. You pick out which side I'm talking about there. It's evident every single day. But we need to learn how to lead through this angry world. And it ain't easy. But the first thing you do as a leader when you're dealing with your shareholders or your stakeholders in your organization, this is your team, this is your leaders below you, this is as an executive, this is also in your home if you're fighting with teens or children or spouse or others that are angry, is the first thing you got to do is we got to figure out how to turn down the temperature. When you are facing, let's use business here for a bit. I'm about ready to go into a new fiscal year, and I'm going to have to launch new compensation plans, and I'm going to have to launch new business objectives. And there's going to be people that are coming to those meetings and those conversations raring for a fight. And the first thing I'm going to have to do, and what you should do, or something to contemplate doing, is turn down the temperature. First thing is use reality and admit there's some problems. I know that we are facing some problems as an organization, as a country, as a homestead. You know, the 12-step program of alcoholism, the reason the first step is admit there's a problem is because you can't fix anything unless you face reality. There are leaders around me that do not want to face reality, are scared to bubble up the street-level reality. Some people say yes because they manage up. Oh, we can do that. We'll do that. Give us more. Give us more. They don't understand that if you take on something that is not achievable, you and your team will no longer be there. Achievable can be a plan. Achievable can be attitude. Achievable can be launching new products. Anything. Insert example. But we have to face the reality and manage to it. Use engagement methods that have worked before with your people, right? Pull your hitters aside and talk to them and say, listen, have I led you astray in the past individually? No. Why would I do it now? Let's calm down. I understand business has been challenged the last couple of years. I understand income is down the last few years. I understand inflation is roaring. Let's concentrate on our controllables. You know, there's two ways in which to make decisions. One is data-based, and one is emotional-based. Good leaders minimize the emotion as much as possible. We are human beings. You need to use empathy. You need to be empathetic, some people say, empathic to those around you. But you also need to be able to let them and drive them to an understanding of there's controllables that we will decision make around, there's uncontrollables, and then there's outside noise. Data is key. But some people just swing to emotions right away. You know who they are. I've got people, friends, family, that just their emotions are on their sleeves. They are just wound so tight that you know they aren't sleeping at night. Why would you do this to yourself? Especially uncontrollables. I'm not happy with government administrative decisions every single day. A lot of them I can't control. So I don't let them burn me up. I was on Facebook up till about 3.5 years ago. I walked away. I was going to bed, and the last thing I would say was, good night and I love you to my wife, and then I'd sit there and stew on the last interaction I had on Facebook with some idiot that isn't informed. I'm not saying I'm always right, but just spewing idiocy. Just to spew it. And we have to be careful there. We can't let that be what leads us. And typically, emotional people, I said typically, there is reason for emotions. But in decision-making, emotions are not good. In driving change, in handling adversity, in driving for the win, emotions are not good. Being reared up to drive for the wind is a good emotion, but you don't use emotions in the decision making on how you're going to go win. So those that are not as informed, or those that have had their head in the sand and just think that the world is ending and are making decisions or opinions based around emotion, they fall to that. They don't have the data, so their only response is emotional. And we have to be very, very careful. In this distracted world we're in, right? So much coming at us, multitasking, more being asked out of less people. It's very easy for our fight or flight brain to kick in. And what I mean by this is the emotional and brings on the rage that I'm talking about. How do we manage in a pissed off world? How do we manage in an angry world? How do we manage outrage, as the Harvard Business Review called the article? And the way you have to, first of all, you have to understand what's driving it. The fight or flight comes out as soon as that emotion kicks in. Same part of the brain. When you don't have the wherewithal to handle it, you immediately go into the fright, flight. Oh my God, it's ending. I don't know if we were just tougher in the 70s or what, but we used to do nuclear war, get under the tables. The bomb's going to hit. But we got up and went out to recess. Our parents got up and went to work 60 hours a week. We didn't sit and just, woe is me, and go into this pity party. We can't be that type of community. The only way we are our best as individuals, as a team, as a village, as a country, is to embrace challenges. Don't hide from them. So you have to admit that there's a problem, first and foremost. And then you manage to that by turning down the temperature, right? You say, listen, I know we've had some challenges. You have to entrust in us that we're trying to handle the controllables inside that. And you have to give some trust that we are not leading with intent to harm anybody. That's the first step. The second step, they call in the article, analyze the outrage. Remember, the outrage didn't just happen, didn't just go boom. It's been simmering, right? Water heats up to 211 degrees, and the seas are pretty calm. Maybe we were at 205 in this grand world before the pandemic hit. I don't know. Maybe we were at 150. But we crossed into the 212, the point of boiling, sometime in the last several years. And it's gotten to the point where we as individuals need to say no more. We are going to work together to get through this thing. I mean, I think about how people are so exacerbated on the challenges that we face today, or parents are outraged about some of the little things. Let's face it, 75 years ago, or now it's 80 years ago, we were sending 18-year-old boys off to die on islands we didn't even know existed the weekend before. I'm talking about World War II. You want to talk about anxiety about your children? My grandparents got a missing in action notification of my dad's oldest brother on Thanksgiving Day, 1944. He was shot down. He crash landed into Soviet Union, captured after 9 days, held in an internment camp. They didn't know any of this. There weren't radios. There weren't phones and cell phones and things of this nature. He didn't fly the bomber back. He's missing. They got the missing in action knock on the door Thanksgiving Day, 1944. Now they had two other sons, my dad and his identical twin, still fighting in the Philippines. That was handling adversity. We're trying to save the world from a maniac that simply stated, if you don't believe like I believe, we're going to kill you. If you don't look like me, I'm going to kill you. If you don't think like me, I'm going to kill you. It was about taking over the world. That's stress. We have to put a little bit of understanding of what is going on here, but people don't understand the history of the country. They insert their own narrative in what we are when I think we're the greatest thing that's ever been on earth? Why are millions trying to get here every single day? So just put it in perspective is what I'm saying there. So analyze the outrage is the second piece of the article. I got a little off track. But it's built off of experiences, right or wrong. They got there, so what I was saying about the temperature, we got to 212 because they were experiencing things along the way that just ratcheted it up. Just, DEFCON 4. Another thing happens. DEFCON 3. Hey, we got to lock everything down for 2 weeks. 6 months later, DEFCON 2. Now we're sitting here at DEFCON 1.5, and if we aren't careful as a society, as leaders in our families, as leaders in our community, as leaders in our business lives, we're going to go bad. And we have to help each other get there. Don't attack those around you that have these feelings of anguish, though. That's going to do no good. What you have to do is you have to help them understand why your vision, why your direction, why your optimism is the right way to go. And again, it's about controllables and uncontrollables. It's the psyche. It's managing the 6 inches between your ears. But if you attack them, you're going to embolden the outrage. You got to find some middle ground, right? That's how we used to govern in this country. You would find a middle ground. The left would get some, the right would get some. That's probably the right. We need to be in the center. And we'd move forward. Now it's an all or nothing game. Now we won't pass legislation because we don't want the other team to get the win. It's a great thing. Everybody says it's a great thing. Nobody wants to do anything about immigration because why would we give an administration a win on it? Let's wait till the next administration. We'll win, we'll be in power, and then we'll do it. Well, guess what? We have split government nearly all the time. And split government isn't going to allow these things to happen. It's just dreadful. So don't embolden them. Don't embolden the outrage. Find a middle ground. Don't say things like, deal with it. I've been on calls where you prove in the dialect and in the discourse that the numbers they're rolling down to you, as an example, are ludicrous. Can't hit that plan. We're still in a pandemic-led world with a war going on, supply chain issues, and you want us to get to 2019 levels? That isn't going to win over the crowd in any manner. You have to hear them, and you have to build with them the bridges to get there. There's 3 things that you got to kind of use when you're thinking about the challenges and the anger you're trying to take over here. As a leader, what I want to do is I want to look at the situation coming into the next fiscal as an example, and I want to see and understand if the leaders inside my company, myself included, if our actions are responsible for some of the outrage. And I can say honestly inside my own company that yes, mistakes have been made. The pandemic, and I don't blame anybody. I take accountability for being part of that decision making. I don't blame there because this was a whole new world. Everybody's trying to keep the lights on. Millions of businesses went under. Millions of industries struggled and continue to struggle. But did we make some decisions that were a part of it or led to some additional hits? Yes, I was a part of that. So we have to say, are we responsible in some way for the outrage? Then we have to decide, will inaction, in other words, if we don't do anything, is it going to get worse? Yeah, probably. That's an easy one. Putting your head in the sand has never led to a good result, ever. Remember 12 steps. Admit there's a problem. Then you can work on healing. Got to admit as a problem. Accountability. We touched on it early on in the podcast launch. Be accountable. Take action. Don't do inaction. And is acting on the outrage our responsibility as a leader? Well, duh. Yeah. You got to get the locker room, our people, an analogy here, you got to get the locker room bought back in. But you don't do it through misleading, lying, or setting expectations that aren't achievable. Same thing for your family. Set small goals of improvement. You can build. Momentum comes from the first roll of the wheel, the second roll of the wheel, the snowball effect, right? Roll a snowball off the top of a hill. As it rolls down through the snow, the ball gets bigger and bigger, picks up speed, picks up inertia. As the mass gets heavier, look up the math books. Mass is part of inertia calculations. As it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it becomes unstoppable. The same thing holds true here in leading in your personal lives, in your business lives, and in your interaction. Do you not know a neighbor down the street because everybody's been locked up? Go introduce yourself. Are your kids sitting there absolutely stressed because they're on their phones all the time and everything is negative? They think they don't have any worth because all the pretty girls use the big filters. I have 2 daughters to make themselves look beautiful. Everybody wants to be an influencer. Give me a break. Just threw up my mouth. Influencers. They don't feel pretty enough. They don't feel smart enough. Remember, all those lives are fake. They're making them up as they go along. Those people aren't happy. We got a bunch of kids living in basements right now. I want everyone to understand one thing. Now I'm speaking to the parents out there and as a society, right? There's this outrage because of this negative cloud and this lack of optimism, and we start feeling sorry for ourselves and we can't get out of it. It's perpetuating our situation. Coming home to your parents' basement is a lifeline, not a lifestyle. As a young adult, get after it. I was at a Christmas party here a couple weeks ago with family, and we were talking about some of this stuff because we have discourse in my family. We discuss issues. We don't yell. We may disagree. We hug and love each other. Don't do it perfect, but you have to have discourse. And a friend of my cousin's husband, son, had gotten hired right when the pandemic hit and they shut down. So he has worked at home for 2.5 years. And the discussion was coming up that they had talked about working 5 days a week and they're starting to roll back out this hybrid workforce. Come in 3 days, come in 2 days, and we'll work back to 5. And this kid was just exacerbated. What? I mean, go into work 5 days a week? What? We have tens of millions of people that think that wearing pajamas with little flip-flops on, not showering for 3 days, is the U.S. work environment that makes us great. It's a failure. Now, I work from home. I shower, but we're driving things every day. It's not the norm for all of society to be doing this. Technology has helped, but what it's creating is hermits. It's creating socially inept people. It's creating passive-aggressive behavior because everything's shared on a phone. Get out, go talk to people. Get out, go to work. Go build relationships. Those things will help bring the anger down in the world. Start enjoying life again. Go on a vacation. Go see your kids that are far away. Go out to dinner. Enjoy things a little bit. You can work your ass off your whole life, have a whole bunch of money, but if you don't enjoy some things in life, that's going to just make you angry at the end. I'm not going to do it. So analyze the outrage. Don't say deal with it. Are we responsible for the actions? Will the inaction be worse off for us, etc.? Shaping your response is really, really critical. You have to understand the inaction or the wrong action. You got to be able to see what mistakes you made and steer the ship. Now there's four. I said 3. I wrote down 4. Got to take care of my own notes here. Understand your power to mobilize others. And what I mean by that is as a leader at home, in the business world, or in your community, you basically have 4 different ways in which to get people to buy in. You know, the first one is coercion, and that's not a bad word. You coerce by using data and information to take the negative outlook on life and start to move it to a more optimistic. Yes, we can. Practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes you able to compete. You have to coerce, convince, enlighten your staff, your family, your community on why things are good, the direction you're taking it. As a leader, you need to stand and be positive and stand and with conviction tell them why we need to do it. Sinek talks about your why a lot, right? It's a great aspect, great point. It's been done many times before. He marketed it great speaker. But you got to give them, remember, purpose. So tell them why. There's got to be some reciprocity. If you do, we will give. You will get in return for those actions. So you got coercive, you got reciprocity, you got emotional. You have to get them fired up. You have to let them know that it's possible. You have to give them the tools to make it possible so you can get that emotional response out of people. People will move, right? People take on huge endeavors. You got to get fired up to start to scale the top of a mountain, right? You got to have some internal combustion going on there in life. You see it in battlefields and historical military explanations where 10 took on 100. Great movie, The 300, goes back to the Greek times and the Spartans. 300 held thousands for days at bay. Look it up. Great story. And the last one is rational. Coercive, reciprocal, emotional, and rational. You got to be rational with people. You got to sit them down and say, you're blowing up left and right. What good has it done? Your blood pressure's up. Took a year off your life. Happy about that? Come on, man. We got to settle down here. Let's be rational. And some people get upset on that. Are you calling me irrational? Yeah, right now I kind of am. People are pissed off just to be pissed off. Why? Folks, take a breath. Relax a little bit. Life is good. You shape your response. You got to understand the impacts of inaction or the wrong action. And if it's not the right action, don't do it. Don't do the head in the sand. I've said it before. And the last thing you got to do as a leader in this time right now is we got to renew our resilience. We used to be the toughest kids on the block as Americans. Industry, family, everything. We have saved the world multiple times. We have finished fights that aren't ours. We have developed things that have changed the world from an industrial standpoint, a technology standpoint. So have others. But we have done the most, undoubtedly, not arguable. We need to reinstill resilience. And parents, I'm talking to you right now. Ask more of your children. Create good villagers. We are failing right now. We are puppy dogging and protecting them and hovering and helicoptering, whatever you want to call it. And in the business world, we have led in too fearful of a manner at times too. You have this new group of people that are coming into the work world that don't understand what work is about. We have to do that at home. We have to show what hard work looks like. When you graduate, you move on. The birds leave the nest. The cubs leave the den. But we aren't allowing that to happen right now because we're so fearful. My poor little kiddies, they can't survive without me. No, they can. They need to. They must. Life is hard. We have to, in business and personal families and as community leaders, strap the boots on and get after it. And I know we're going to be successful because you're awesome. Keep that shit up. Talk next week.